Segment 2, Gold and Black Live, joined by Mike Bobinski, Purdue's athletic director. In the wonderful world of college athletics and competition, when you lose, 12 hours later, you're talking about it and you're living it and you're moving on. And Mike, what an unbelievable atmosphere in Ross H. Stadium last night. Yes, it was a golden opportunity for Purdue to get a win. We kind of hit on that subject, but it still was just an amazing football game and an atmosphere. But I'm going to ask you from a competitive state, because you stood on the mound as a college athlete. Nobody likes to lose. Jeff Brom doesn't like to lose. Aiden O'Connell doesn't like to lose, etc. When you talk about moving on, what do you have to learn from last night as this team moves forward?
I think, first of all, certainly acknowledge everything you just said. I mean, the crowd was awesome. The environment was spectacular. It was a beautiful evening in every way. And so appreciative of our folks being there in great numbers and loud as all get out. It was really something. And so there was a tremendous opportunity in front of us. As I've reflected on it ad nauseum, over many hours of no sleep and just regurgitating everything in my mind here. To me, frustrating, disappointing, but definitely not discouraging. It's I think I know I saw enough during the course of that evening in terms of what we have in place here to know that we have the opportunity to have a really, really terrific year still ahead of us. That game was there for the taking. We just needed to make literally one play, two plays on either side of the ball at the right moment, maybe make one or two less mistakes, wrap up a little bit better tackling wise, and we win that game. Now that's coulda, woulda, shoulda. That doesn't count for anything. We all know that. But again, I think once we correct some of those things that I think a lot of it were, sort of first game, lots of guys in new places being counted on to be the guy, maybe for the first time in their career here at Purdue. I saw enough to know that I think we're gonna, again, assuming we stay together mentally, which I have every confidence. I mean, it's a long season. Everybody knows that. I feel really good about where we're going. I think the year is going to be every bit as rewarding as we hoped it would be. Just have to wash the taste out of our mouths from last night. I wish we were playing tomorrow, to be honest with you. It'd be great to just kind of get this out of our system and move on, learn and move on from that. But I have every confidence we will. I'm really looking forward to the weeks ahead.
Introspection and self-evaluation is part of Jeff Brom's DNA, it seems. Even he mentioned that yesterday when somebody asked him in post-game about, well, do you think you should have run the football a little bit more? And he didn't reject it out of hand. I'm talking the last 5 or 6 minutes. We can all be armchair quarterbacks. But as an athletic director, what's your role when you have tough losses, and you do in every sport every year? What role do you play as you talk to a Jeff Brom or staff after a game like last night?
Yeah, Jeff and I visit after every game after he does his press, his mandatory press event there, and we have a very we share our thoughts very, very openly. We were both frustrated last night for sure. We were both, I think, thinking the same things, asking the same questions of, what if, but as you said, he is, extremely thoughtful and studies it very closely and will review and evaluate whether or not we could have or should have gone in a different direction at certain times. Now, watching that game down the stretch, they were loading the line of scrimmage extremely aggressively because they were good enough on the back end to guard us man to man. I mean, they were if you look at their secondary, they're NFL guys. I mean, they are legit players back there. So they were good enough to guard us man to man. So they were loading the box and just daring us to try to run. So I don't know. And they had 2 timeouts left. So I don't see, everybody's obviously when you lose a game like this, you have people magnifying glass on everything. I don't think there was a way to clock manage your way to a victory last night. I think you needed to make a play. We needed to make a positive play on either side of the ball for us to ultimately win that game. And we just were unable to do that. To give Penn State credit, they had unbelievable, well managed, well executed last drive. They did everything right from their perspective. But if we had just mustered up a play, either on either side of the ball there, one more first down, one more really good tackle to make it harder for them to go down the field, could have gone a different way, but it didn't. And we've got to live with that, deal with it, and get better from it.
Yeah, good point. Nothing else going on in your world these days either outside of college football, but Kevin Warren in the house last night, the Big Ten commissioner. God, we could spend hours, and I know that's just what you want to do, talking about realignment, but it was a huge day at Purdue. When Drew Brees comes to town, it's a big day, and it's hard to minimize that. And obviously, you have an arm's length relationship, but an important relationship with the Boilermaker Alliance, or it's important to the future of your program, certainly. And NIL is here to stay and being embraced. Talk about just your moments with Drew yesterday, and you did a couple of things, I think different things with him as well. But what he means and what that means for the Boilermaker Alliance. And of course, we have Jeff McKean on and Jared Thomas in segment 3. They'll explain a little bit further, but what does that mean?
Drew has such a lends an air of credibility and authenticity to everything he touches. And certainly within our community, within the Purdue community, he's respected for not only who he was as an athlete, but who he is as a person. He and Brittany and all they've done for the communities that they've in, all they've done for Purdue and the way they've stayed connected to Purdue, the fact that he would endorse and actively now participate in this effort, just, I think, lends some legitimacy to it. If anybody was questioning whether or not this is a real thing, and if it matters, and if it's serious, and if important people take it seriously, I think Drew being involved answers that question pretty loudly. And so I'm really appreciative of him being willing to step in the very active role that he is now stepping into. The name, image, and likeness world and the world of the Boilermaker Alliance are things that certainly were not of our creation nationally, but they are a reality at this point. And for us to remain in a competitive posture, we've got to be active. We got to be in the game, and having Drew on board is certainly a real positive.
I thought Drew in the press conference yesterday talked, importantly about the fact that it's a moving target. It's a move, it still is. He didn't say, well, this is the way it's going to be from now till the end of time, but it is the way that it is now.
Yes.
And it's almost impossible to do a crystal ball in this situation. I get that, but you think that this is still going to be the standing operating procedure for the 1 to 3 year future, you would think. Is that a fair statement, or is that overstated?
No, I think that's very fair, Alan. I don't see any momentum or any tangible action to have it be otherwise. It exists. It's in our world at this point, and I think there's nothing that would eliminate the need to be active and to be at least competitive in that space here over the near term. And I think your time frame is very, very realistic in terms of when it might get wrestled to the ground or adjusted in some way. But for right now, it is a reality, and it's something that again we can't afford. I don't believe if we're truly trying to position ourselves for success, to look the other way and say we're just not going to participate in that. That's not an answer that I think makes sense for us. We've got to be in it, and I'm really thankful for the leadership group, the board, particularly the executive board of the Boilermaker Alliance, the effort, the time, the care that they've taken to do this the right way, in a way that reflects the values and the things that are important to Purdue. I mean, they have really, really bent themselves over backwards to do this in a way that we will all feel good about. And that'll have some substance to it, and that's not the case everywhere, but it's the way it needs to be and should be here at Purdue, and I'm grateful that's where we're headed.
Yeah, Jeff McKean and guys like Chris Clopton, guys that are A1 people, that helps, and certainly Jared Thomas too, another guy that is going to, it seems to me, will be able to model what you would want if you were sitting there, if you were their boss, so to speak, and that I think has to be a little bit comforting from your perspective.
Completely, absolutely, and they've been so good about checking in along the way and saying, hey, what do you think? Does this feel right or not right? And so we've been, as we can't direct it, that's not the way these things work, but we've been philosophically connected throughout this as they've walked down the path, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, another project, just another thing that went on this week. Just a little thing. Obviously, the announcement. There's more specifics of the $45 million renovation, phase one of the renovation, new renovation, I should say, of Ross 8 Stadium. We knew what was going to happen. We didn't know exactly how it was going to look. Change is always a fun thing for just about everybody, isn't it? But by the same token, I thought the rendering's very impressive. And you did, and like anybody that's doing a good job in their business figures out, we got to do things with absolute purpose. There's other fish to fry that we may not know, the general public may not know about, that are part of this thing. But talk about, just from an overriding standpoint, what makes you excited about the renovation and the way it was unveiled.
I think all the elements, the three primary elements of this phase of the renovation, are things that are all in their own way really important to us as an athletic department, as a football program, and an athletic, the overall program, particularly with the nutrition and dining facility. I mean, that's an element that we sorely lack at this point in time. The ability to add that, to be able to serve the nutritional needs of all of our athletes, which has become a ever increasingly important element in college athletics. And we've got a staff of really talented dietitians. We just don't have a place for them to really do their job as effectively as they're capable of. And this will really provide that in a really, really good way. So I'm very excited about that element. The entrance tunnel from the Kozik Football Performance Center into the stadium last night, to me, was the absolute exhibit A of why that is important. Pre-game, we had thousands of people pouring into the stadium, getting into the stadium while our team is trying to navigate their way into the entrance down in the south part of the end zone. That's not good. And then post-game, people are pouring out of the stadium while our team is trying to make their way out of our little halftime room back up to the football performance center. That is a situation that is just ripe for problems. You lose an emotional game. It's late at night. It's past midnight. People are, thousands of people coming this way, a team trying to swim upstream. That tunnel will provide a much safer, more efficient, and honestly, at the end of the day, I think more impactful entrance and exit for our team. So that's a necessity for me. We're unable to manage it effectively the way it is right now, particularly when we're fortunate enough to have the crowds that we now get there. The day has come when we need to do that differently, and so we're going to try to be as smart as we can about managing that through the rest of this year. But I think we were fortunate last night to not have issues because it was just too many bodies going too many different directions, including 100 guys in football outfits, in football uniforms, and that's a tough dynamic to set yourself up for. So getting that right will be important. And then finally, the south end zone piece, where it's been many iterations and many different designs have been discussed and thought about over the course of time. But I like where we've landed. We've landed there intentionally. As the world turns, and certainly generationally, people like to experience games in different ways. Particularly the younger generation likes to have more social interaction during the course of a game. They're not as much wanting to sit in a specific seat, staring straight ahead, looking at the game. So having some combination of traditional seating elements and some open, more gathering space type areas, I think is something that is really responsive to the way people want to experience games these days. And we're excited about that. I also really like the idea of, and we went to the students on this, we went to the band on it, and they are all on board with sort of them owning that part of the stadium, sort of owning that end zone piece, eliminating some of the interaction that we now have with our student population has grown in the stadium.
Yeah.
Which we are incredibly appreciative, and it makes, they bring so much life and so much energy. But I think we'll eliminate some of the natural sort of, not conflict, but there's a little bit of where the students meet the public. There's always sort of there's that space where things don't always go great. No,
Yeah.
it's just a fact of life. I've been doing this for so long. I've seen it many places. I think, having the students in their own area, that's really their area, and not as much sort of butting up against or in front of other patrons will be just a really good thing. And I think they'll actually be able to impact the game more significantly as they sort of project sound throughout the entire bowl, as opposed to the way it works right now. So I think it's going to work in a really good way. I think the ability to connect the east and west stands with a a sort of a continuous concourse behind the scoreboard will be a nice element. I think it's, and visually it'll really complete the look of the stadium. That scoreboard is such a huge feature and element now, and building stands up and around that, I think will really be something striking from a visual perspective.
All right, you look ahead now. Of course, now it's always, now that this is already on the books, now we look and say, well, what's next? And you obviously have some thoughts, and you can swear under your breath with me after we're done. But what if you had your druthers and you had the opportunity to do the next phase, more work on the north end is part of it, and possibly the deck as well. What do you see as a potential timetable, or you just say, let's deal with what we're dealing with and move on?
No, we're going to actively, we are in the throes of actively identifying what we believe the right elements of phase 2 might be. There's lots of things on the table right now. Some of it will certainly be, I think, the pavilion is now, I think, 20 years or 21 years deep. And, there are areas
exactly
that really need a refresh. I mean, anything 20 years in, you think of a house that was built in the year 2000 and hasn't been updated. It's probably needs a few things to be updated. So doing some work in there and taking care of those folks that are, haven't really investing in a premium experience. We need to make sure we provide a premium environment for them. So that'll be part of it. I think out in the stadium, having more seat backs, more chairs, more seats that are actually on certain parts of the stadium will be something that we want to provide in some areas. As you said, the north end zone has always been a longer term part of our plan to sort of try to bring that closer into the playing surface, so that the stadium becomes more intimate. If we can figure that out, it's at the end of the day, it's all going to be a function of how much we believe we can raise, and how much we can and what the related costs are for those different elements, and we'll figure it out as we move along. But we're going to actively pin down those elements that we think are most impactful, most that reflect our ability to raise dollars here in that next 1 to 3 year period, so that when this phase is done, we're actively in the fundraising period and then ready to roll as soon as possible with phase 2.
One of the things that is a challenge, and certainly brought to the fore, is with collectives and NIL, and balancing that with fundraising and trying to raise money for projects. It's early, so you're still got to feel your way, my guess is, through that and determine how that all is going to work together. How do you see that? I mean, in terms of the challenges for John Purdue Club, but also knowing that you're going to need to find ways to creatively fund your student athletes as well.
Sure. I mean, that is certainly a real issue, and one that we think about a lot. Our existing priorities haven't changed, and we still need to fund our scholarships. We still need to fund endowments. We still need to fund capital projects. So none of those priorities have left our plate here. They are all still active and haven't changed in scope. If anything, as you try to undertake stadium renovations, they've increased in scope. Those are high dollar, high cost issues. The collective world, I think the good news about that is, in terms of scale, that's really, it's the lowest in terms of scale, even though it's real money and it's a significant amount of dollars that would need to be raised. It doesn't rise to the level of our scholarship bill or our capital expenditure bill. It's not at that level of magnitude. So while I don't dismiss it at all in terms of its difficulty in raising it, it's not something that I think will ever completely upside down our priorities, nor disrupt them in a way that we still can't accomplish all of our ongoing goals. I think all that's in front of us. It will be a challenge. We want to try to provide as much clarity as we can to our donors to let them know that, hey, what they've done for us for years still matters and is still a priority. And if they're in a position to, or have a great interest in investing in the NIL world, then certainly they should take advantage of that opportunity. And we'd encourage them to do so. But we still have our existing priorities.
And time for a couple more questions. That is an interesting concept, just because the whole notion of what is the amount? I mean, you don't really have a track record of saying, well, what is the amount from a student athlete compensation model that is appropriate? Do you see that being a scale that it needs to be somewhat homogenous among the Power 5 programs or programs like yourselves, or how do you see that evolving?
I don't think it'll be homogenous at this point in time, particularly through the collective world, Alan. I think that's really going to be much more of a local community or a fan base's ability to generate resources, and that will differ from place to place. I think that's just a reality that we're going to have to deal with. So I don't know that I see any uniformity in dollar amount. I think we all in college athletics would like to see some uniformity in application, in use, sort of eliminating the role of NIL/collectives in recruiting, or inducements to transfer, all those sort of things that were, in theory, were to be prohibited by this and weren't part of this, have all become part of it. And so finding a way to walk that backwards and get this to be what it was truly meant to be, and that is providing a compensation for legitimate activity and legitimate market value. If there's a way to do that, that would be. There's lots of conversation going on that front right now. I think everybody of ethical mind and thought wants things to move in that direction. It's just, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you actually move in that direction to get it back to what it was meant to be in the first place?
A sleepless night after a 34-31 loss is nothing compared to trying to solve that question that you just tried to answer. I think it's just going to be interesting to see how you have to hope that like and reasonable minds prevail. Right. And that's it. The last question I thought was one of the most important things and interesting things that came out of Drew's announcement yesterday is the fact that he wants to, the Boilermaker Alliance really wants to fund all student athletes, because one of the things that we sit back and look at this and don't look maybe at the mental side of this, but or the side from the student athlete perspective is that they all want to be valued, and I think this is an important and maybe very ambitious. I'll say that, but I think it's an important step for your entire program, and might make your life just a little bit easier in the fact that there is a move afloat to try to get opportunities for everybody, not just football and men's basketball.
That's an really awesome aspiration for the Alliance to undertake. I mean, we would love that to be the case. Certainly there's a market reality right now where this is a bigger factor in certain sports, and we can all know what those are. Football, it's the basketballs. That's where this has become much more of a sort of an immediate issue. But if we can somehow move ourselves to the place where we provide opportunities for our entire student athlete population, I think that's a real separator for us. And that would be again, is absolutely the right aspirational goal to have, with the understanding that in the short run, we need to make sure that we do what needs to be done and what allows us to be competitive in the sports where this is a real sort of issue that our coaches come across every day at this point.
Yeah, good answer, and well appreciated. All right, we're done. You've done your duty. No, we appreciate you very much. We always appreciate the fact that you take time for us and articulate your vision. And it's life is full of challenges, and that's why you do what you do. So I hope you have a good rest of your Labor Day, or start your Labor Day weekend. It may not be a full weekend of vacation, but it will be at least maybe a time to halfway catch your breath for an hour or two at least. But thanks so much. Good luck to you guys for the rest of the year. We'll be back next week, not only for Gold and Black Live, but also we'll be back in Ross-Ade Stadium, because that's the good thing about sports. You get to play next week. So that's a good thing.
Appreciate it, Alan. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you. We'll be back for segment 3. Jeff McKeon and Jared Thomas, as promised. We'll look forward to that very interesting conversation today from Mike Bobinski as well. So we'll be back in about 2 minutes on Gold and Black Live.